What's up, bitches?
Let's talk about crime.
What's up, bitches?
Hello.
I'm just over here rocking out. I really do like our intro. Like every time I hear, I'm like, yeah, we badass. And Sierra's over here drinking an Alani because I'm totally against all energy drinks, but whatever.
Alani Orange Kiss.
And I
Not
haven't
my
even
favorite
had
one.
I haven't even had my coffee today because I had a stupid ass dentist appointment this morning, and that just always ruins my day.
Guess what? 0 grams of sugar.
I don't care. It's still an energy drink made with chemicals that are probably going to kill you, so it's fine. I mean, we're all going to die.
You know what else is going to kill me? Probably all the food that we eat, the environment. So,
I don't know what food you be eating, but I know the food that we be eating over here. We don't even hardly eat processed food anymore. So
I don't buy organic.
I don't buy
That's
organic.
just too expensive.
I don't buy organic either because organic is organic schmanic. It's not ever really organic. But I'm just saying, like, we make a lot of our stuff from scratch because we're trying to do the health thing. I'm just saying. Actually, no, for reals, the reason I don't like those is because I don't like the flavors of energy drinks. I think they're nasty as hell.
These ones I've noticed, to me at least,
I've seen a lot of people drink those. Yeah.
Because, like, my best friend and I were talking about it. Her favorite is the cherry slush and the cotton candy one. I've never had the cotton candy one.
I love cotton
the cherry
candy,
slush
but
is actually,
not as
the
a
cherry
drink.
slush one so far is my favorite.
Okay, but you're talking to the same person who doesn't drink juice. I don't drink juice because I don't like it.
I love juice.
I don't
cranberry juice. I'll drink that shit straight.
I will drink a cranberry juice, but I like a little tiny bit.
I'll drink the whole fucking.
But if
jug.
you add a little vodka to that, I'll definitely be drinking a cranberry juice.
You're an alcoholic.
No, I'm not an alcoholic. I just don't like how sweet the juice is. So when you add the vodka, it kind of cuts down. No, I do not want a taste of your nasty drink.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, again, YOLO, man. Whatever.
I'm all for it. Actually, but as a child and teenager, my children were not allowed to have energy drinks because I am totally against younger people, not under, not like 18, 19, even high school students. I'm talking about like those really formative years, those middle school and elementary school. I see kids with coffee and I see kids with their energy drinks, and it blows my mind.
I was the middle schooler that drank coffee.
You did drink coffee, but coffee to me is a little bit different. And it also was the size, right? Like you would have no bigger than a 16 ounce. Right. I see like elementary school kids walk into
like
school with like a 32 ounce like Dutch Bros energy Rebel drink, and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And then of course they have so much energy they're bouncing off the walls.
Well, no, like so I feel like what was really popular when I was in school was Red Bull and Monster. Those were the two.
I bet.
Two. Rockstar was there, but not really. Now as an adult, first of all, Alani is fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
But as an adult, what I actually drank before Alani was Ghost. But there's so many different fucking energy drinks.
So many energy drinks now.
So for one of at my work, we do like an appreciation month every month, and we get to pick like as a team what we want to do or have our boss buy, because it's all funds that we get from our work. And so this time we were like, well, let's do drinks, because last month we did food. So we did a bunch of drinks. So everybody just like spitballed a bunch of things. And my boss was like, well, energy drinks, like I know everybody in our hospital drinks energy drinks. For the people that don't, they drink coffee. So she made sure that she got both. But she was like, what should I do for energy drinks? And I was like, just do the 3 that we see people drink, which is Alani, Red Bull, and Rockstar.
Red Bull tastes like cough syrup.
Yeah, I think Red Bulls are nasty. I've tried Red Bulls like on their own.
Yeah, they're not
good.
They're very popular. People love them. And I used to own a coffee shop, so I was part of the problem. I offered Red Bull and Lotus energy drinks and then coffee, and I have no problem with it. It's just my personal preference for my own children was that they were not allowed to have energy drinks as children. They're both adults now, and both of them drink energy drinks. She drinks the Alani, and my son drinks Lotuses. He makes himself Lotuses at home. Listen, drink what you want to drink.
Your cup of tea.
But when you're a child, I didn't give my kids energy. Anyways, okay, we're not here to really. We're not
apparently
here.
We're food and nutrition.
Now we're talking about food, and we talk about all kinds of things on this.
Also, we
podcast.
don't know what we're talking about when it comes to that shit, so it's fine.
Correct. Don't listen to what we have to say. We just tell you what we want to tell you. Drink what you want to drink.
If you want
get what you want to get.
Follow Gabby on TikTok.
Parent the way you want to parent. Okay, so but what we are here to talk about is talk about murder, true crime, all the things. And this week, what are we talking about? We are talking about the year 1927, and this is in May. So like, summer-ish, like spring, summer. This is in Bath Township, Michigan. Now, the Bath School disaster is what it's called. It's also known as the Bath Town Massacre took place. Now, Andrew Kehoe is held responsible. So I'm gonna tell you just a little bit about the town, Bath Township, and then I'll tell you a little bit about Andrew. So Bath Township, at the time that this took place, Bath Township was a civil township. Because remember, this is the 20s. So like these are, communities are still like growing. They go from like these little tiny towns. They become bigger and those kind of things. Now, this actually is located about 10 miles northeast of Lansing, Michigan, which Lansing is the capital of Michigan.
I know where Lansing is.
Okay. So Bath Township is in Michigan. It's a little civil township area, 10 miles northeast of the capital of Michigan. Now, this area is primarily at the time agricultural, meaning it's like farmers, right? Lots of farmers with, not lots, but farmers with lots of farmland, right? And after years of debate, the Bath Township voters actually approved the creation of a consolidated school district in 1922. Now, what this means is at the time, before they voted on this, there was like little tiny schoolhouses, like all throughout this little area. And it was literal, they had several. So it was like, you'd have one schoolhouse. And again, seriously, think back to like movies of a schoolhouse. There's only so many students that can fit in a schoolhouse, right? So you figure there's probably 30 kids in each schoolhouse, and they're popping up all throughout this area of Bath Township. So they decide, let's take away all the little schools, create one big consolidated school, and all the kids can go to this school. Kind of like a public school, right? This also included they'd have to raise the taxes on all the local farms on any local farms and any local homes to help fund building the school. So at the opening of the school, there were 236 students had enrolled, and this is literally from...
Well, that's actually a lot. Actually, that's more than I thought.
But that's what I'm saying. So when you think about it that way, it made sense. Because think about that, 236 students, but they had recently had them split between multiple little schoolhouses. So you figure that's a lot of smaller schoolhouses. So why not put them all into one area?
I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
Makes sense. Now, this consolidated school actually had kids from grade 1 to grade 12. So it was all...
So kind of like your first, not K, but first 1 through 12 school.
Yeah, where all the students go together. Now, this school, actually, the creation of the school was a little bit controversial because people were kind of like, you're going to take away our little schools and make this a big school. But the thing was, the consolidated school had a lot of bigger advantages over the small rural schools that it had replaced. And so they were bringing up all these, whatever the benefits were. I mean, number one, the biggest benefit was just socialization. Your kids would all be able to socialize with each other. Or another idea would be having one location for the school. You're not having to travel anywhere but in the middle of wherever they put it. Probably, honestly, it was
probably put it in the middle of the fucking
That's
town.
what I was saying. That's what I'm
sense.
saying. So instead of having to drive across town to drop your kid off at school, you probably just can whatever. Or maybe they could walk to school. There's a lot of benefits. And never mind the fact that
one, it's the 20s, but two, I'm sure this town is fucking tiny.
Well, and if you're funding one school instead of trying to split your funds between a bunch of different schoolhouses, it just makes more sense.
On one.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, all of the landowners at the time, they actually had to pay higher taxes because of this school, which for those of you who don't know, who maybe are listening that don't live in the United States, the way that our schools work is where you live, you pay taxes on your home. Well, part of your taxes on your home go to fund the schools in your area. And the schools also get partial funding from the federal government, but most of the funding going into public schools comes from housing taxes and taxes in your neighborhood. So that's just how they fund it.
don't they break it up like for the bigger cities, like Seattle, Portland, places like that? Don't they break it up by the county?
Yeah, it's by
like
county,
but that's how this based would on be. The county that you're in.
Yeah, so you pay for your thing, but you got to think this town was, at the time, there were only 300 residents at this town.
Well, no, like what you were saying, like it's so small.
Adult
that you
residents.
Just pay for
right. So you figure school. That whole town, you pay for one town school. So again, at the time of at the time of the Bath school disaster, also known, like I said, as the Bath Town Massacre, there were 300 adult residents. So if you do the math on this, 300 adult residents and 236 students enrolled.
So almost every couple or adult had a child.
Probably. But you figure that's 536 people total in this town.
1,000. That's crazy.
Right? So it's a small...
Okay,
but that's, again, it's 1920s. Like,
yeah, but what's funny is like 500 and some people, that was the size of my graduating class in high school.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, so think if you lived in a town with that many people, you would know everybody.
Hell
and you would
know,
no. Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit on Bath Township. Now, Andrew Kehoe, he was born in Tecumseh, Michigan on February 1st, 1872. And he was born into a family of 13 children.
Holy.
That's a thing back in the day. My
Clearly,
personal family.
Fucking family.
Yeah,
history.
My dad is one of 12 and my mom is one of 8.
And then my dad is one of
7.
You guys are the only small ones because you just have your brother and your sister.
I'm one of 3. But even on your dad's side of the family, your grandma
extended is also long, right?
Your grandma's side I think has 8 too. So yeah, it's just having lots of kids was a thing back then.
Left and right. So listen, I've heard childbirth sucks, especially back in that day. So I don't know why the fuck you wanted so many kids.
They also, Andrew also attended local schools, and all of the local schools where he lived. So after he graduates from high school, he actually goes on and studies electrical engineering at Michigan State College in East Lansing, and he ends up working as an electrician for years. And at some point during this time, he ends up suffering a serious head injury, and he actually falls into a coma for like a period of time, like several weeks. So he's like in a coma for several weeks with this head injury. After this, he actually ends up returning because at that point he was not living with his family or anything. He was living on his own. Well, after his head injury and after he comes out of his coma, he actually returns to Michigan to his father's farm. So he goes and lives back on this farm with his dad. Now, Andrew's mother at some point passes away during his life, and his dad actually goes on and he marries like a younger woman. Her name was Frances Wilder, and she was also a widower. And the two of them end up having a daughter together. So September 17th, 1911, Andrew is 39 years old. And he's like, I'm assuming he's just like visiting, or maybe he's living. I mean, to be fair, he could be living at his dad's farm.
Yeah, no fucking judgment, especially this day and age. Well, I don't know back then, but still.
So he's like sitting there. Francis actually is attempting to light their family oil stove, and the whole fucking thing explodes and lights her on fire. Now, Andrew throws a bucket of water on her. However, the fire is an oil-based fire.
Bro, you just...
Yeah. So what he did was I
may not be smart, but I know that's just dumb as fuck.
So he actually made the flames spread faster and like way worse. Now, her injuries are so terrible, she actually dies the following day from these injuries.
I kind of would hope, because that's a lot, especially back in that day.
Yeah.
You don't have the same medicine that we do now for burn victims. That would have been I mean, she probably would have died regardless, but that almost is better that she died.
Now, some of the neighbors actually thought that Andrew had actually caused the explosion. That's actually the neighbors of the farm.
Could see
they actually thought that he had purposely caused the explosion because it kind of sounds like he didn't like her.
I can see the rumor.
Yeah. And on top of it, he throws a bucket of water on it. And by the way, he's an electrician. Not that he knows fire safety, but he probably knew something about fire. And most people know that you don't put water on a fire that's out of oil, right? So it's a little bizarre. So then in 1912, Andrew actually marries a woman named Ellen Price. Now, 7 years later, they moved to a farm outside of Bath Township. So now they're living on their own farm. And Andrew actually is described as dependable. He did favors for his neighbors. He volunteered to help anybody at any time. But he also was described as being impatient with any disagreement, so much so that he shot his neighbor's dog because the dog had come onto his property and was annoying him.
Okay, first of all, that alone, you should have the death sentence. Just throwing that out there. I already don't fucking like this guy. That just solidified. That's almost worse than whatever the actual crime is.
Okay, well, it's going to get worse. Because
it can't get worse than a dog.
Oh, yes, it can.
Right, Olive?
He also beat one of his horses to death when it didn't perform to his expectations.
You really got to do a number on a horse then.
That's what I'm saying.
Strong as fuck.
That's what I'm saying. To beat a horse to death.
Evil.
Yeah. And horses are so...
they're so fucking scared.
Well, and they're so smart and they love people. So they're like dogs, but ginormous. Now, Andrew was also very frugal with his finances. Like he didn't spend money on shit. And he also didn't have a ton of money. But when he did have money, like he would use it very sparingly. He was voted in as a trustee on the school board in 1924. And he held that position for 3 years. And then he was also the treasurer for the school board for 1 year. Now, he would argue very strongly that they needed to lower taxes. He would fight against even things that were most needed in the community. No, we're not going to do this. We're not going to continue to pay high taxes. We're not going to raise them, right? That's what he says. Now, he was actually considered by everybody that he had come in contact with, especially when it comes to like being on the board and stuff, as extremely difficult to work with. He would most of the time vote against what the board wanted. He always wanted his way and would throw fits and be an asshole if he didn't get it. He argued with the township financial authorities constantly. And he also protested that he was already paying too much for taxes and applied to have his house evaluated at a lower price so that he could pay less in taxes. So that's the kind of person he was. Now, in 1922, Bath Township school tax, just to give you an idea, was $12.26 for every $1,000 property value. Okay, because that's how taxes work. It's a percentage or whatever.
Bro, can that come back now?
His property at the time was valued at $10,000, which is approximately $187,000 today. Now, in 1923, the taxes were raised to $1,880 per $1,000 property value. So when you think about that, it in 1 year, it went from $1,226 to $1,880. That's quite a big jump.
Also, I feel like that's pretty high for the 20s.
That's what think about it. Like you think his property was taxed or was valued at $10,000.
Because like what is ours now?
I have no idea.
Oh,
I don't know. I just know that I pay like $8,000 a year in taxes, property taxes. That's what I do know. So again, it jumped to that in 1 year, and he was like, "That's fucked." Well, then in 1926, the taxes were raised again to $19.80, so they went up by $1 per $1,000 property. So basically what this meant is that Andrew's taxes were $122.60 in 1922, which is $2,303 for the year. So he would pay $122. And then by
I lied. I do wish that would come back then.
Well, no, but in today's time, it's $2,300. And to be fair, that is way low because, like I said, I pay like $6,000 to $8,000 a year in taxes for my house. Now, in 1926, though, so again, hear me clearly, $122.60 in 1922. 4 years later, he's paying almost $200 in taxes. Okay, which is the equivalent of over $3,500 in our money now for the year. So it goes up by literally like a lot. That's a lot. And he was pissed about it.
Amen.
Also in 1926, he is informed that his house is going into foreclosure as well. And if for those of you who don't know, foreclosure means that they're going to basically take your house from you because you're not paying payments. Now, his home is actually mortgaged by his uncle. Well, his uncle had died. And apparently after his uncle died, his widow, the one who survived, his aunt, actually went to Andrew and said, if she could not live in that home, nobody could. So I think his uncle was helping him pay the mortgage on that home. And when he died, she decided she wasn't going to pay anymore. And Andrew couldn't afford the payments himself. And she's like, well, if I can't live here, nobody will. And she basically was getting him kicked out. So in 1925, okay, so we're going backwards just a little bit. So in 1925, he's actually appointed a temporary town clerk, but he ends up losing this position on April 5th of 1926 after an election. So he goes into as a temporary one. They do the election and he's voted out of that town clerk position. He's actually really mad about this. He's very angry that these people voted him out. Now, there is speculation that this is kind of what triggered him to create this massacre. Now, Andrew's neighbors actually stated that Andrew had stopped working on his farm like 6 months prior to this massacre, to the point where things were overgrown. Animals weren't being fed properly, like all this stuff. And they actually assumed that he was going to commit suicide because he had just let everything go. And Andrew had also went to one of his neighbors and gave him one of the horses. And the guy was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give this horse back to you because I have a feeling that you're trying to like end your life and I'm trying to make sure you don't do that. So he gives the horse back. You'll find out later that was not a good idea, but he does that. Now, during all this time, he is still married to Nellie. However, Nellie becomes chronically ill. The thought is it actually was tuberculosis. Like they didn't know.
Oh, shit.
But the thought was she had tuberculosis. Mm-hmm. And at the time, there was no treatment. There was no cure. There was nothing.
Yeah,
and
you
so
were fucked.
She was in and out of the hospital all the time. And they also believe this is why he ended up having so much debt and why his house was being foreclosed on, because they had so many and they had so many hospital bills.
Yeah.
He was choosing to pay the hospital bills for his wife and not pay his mortgage. Now, Andrew doesn't just stop making the mortgage payments on the home. He also stops making the insurance payments on the home. So he is literally like, this is why the house is going to be foreclosed. Now, Andrew Kehoe loads up the school and the farm with explosives throughout like a couple of like months or weeks. He literally is buying all these explosives and he's taking time going to his home and going to this consolidated school. And he is like putting them in these buildings. Now, he had pyritol, which is an explosive. He had incendiary explosives, which actually for the time were used by farmers for excavations and burning debris. So it wasn't weird that he was buying it. He had 2 boxes of dynamite, which, by the way, was commonly used by farmers also. So him buying it was not suspicious at all.
It's just so funny when you talk about dynamite in real life because like it's such a movie.
I think of
cartoon.
like the old Western, like
I think of like the Tom and Jerry like dynamite thing.
Now he also had containers of gasoline that had been rigged with tubes. He had explosives and pipes, and he had 3 bamboo fishing rods. Okay, so these are all the things he has. He also loads his truck full of metal debris. And on May 16th, Nellie is released from the hospital. So she had been in the hospital during this time. Now, she is murdered by Andrew but at the time, her murder is not known. Like, they don't know that she was killed. He actually ends up putting her body in a wheelbarrow at the rear end of the farm where the chicken coop is, on the other side of the chicken coop. And he also places explosives all around the farm. So now he's placed explosives on the farm, in his house, and at the school. This is what he's done. He's done all this prior to May 18th. Okay. So at 8:45 a.m. on May 18th, 1927, Andrew detonates the devices in his house and around his farm. So he blows them up. Now, neighbors immediately go to help because they don't realize that he has done this purposely. They just see like this house explode. Probably and it's like a fucking fire. Right. Yeah. And they just see fire. So they call the fire department and the neighbors run over. Now, some of his neighbors actually climb into the house because they're looking for survivors because they know that Nellie lives there and they know that he lives there. So they're like looking around. They do not find anybody in the home. However, they do find dynamite in the corner of the house. And so Andrew ends up, they like bust tail out of the fucking, obviously out of the house. As they're like fighting the fire and all this shit, Andrew ends up driving his truck, again, full of metal, off the property. But he stops before he completely leaves his property and he tells some people who are standing there helping out with his fire, he says, "Hey boys, you should get to the school." And he drives off. It's not funny. I'm not laughing. Please remember, laughing is my coping mechanism because this is a fucking sad ass shit. Okay. At 8:45 a.m. as well, Andrew had set up an explosive in the basement of the north wing of the school. It was such a large explosion. It explodes. It was such a large explosion that people who were actually heading to his house to go help the fire turned around because they knew something terrible had happened and it sounded like something exploded. The initial explosion kills 38 people and most of them were children. Now, the north wing of the school, because it's exploded, ends up collapsing. And one person who had actually volunteered at that point decided they were going to go home and grab a rope because they were going to go help assist in pulling they were going to pull the roof had collapsed and they could see bodies. And so they were going to pull the roof off and
to be able to get
collect the bodies. Right. And so the guy's like, I'm going to run home and I'm going to go get my rope and we'll use my truck and we're going to pull it. And so he goes to leave. Well, he says that as he goes to leave, Andrew drives by him in his truck and waves and smiles at him. Now, Andrew gets to the school after the school has exploded. Okay, so because again, the explosions went off almost at the same time. So his house and then the school, like literally his house, boom, fire. Let's go help. And then boom, the school explodes. Okay, but Andrew's nowhere near the school when this happens. So Andrew pulls up at the school. Nobody fucking thinks Andrew had anything to do with it to start with. Like everybody's just like, whatever. So Andrew gets there. Actually, it's been, I guess I should clarify. It was a half an hour after the explosion he had pulled up. So, okay, so that's where he was. Now, a witness actually states that he watches Andrew pull up in his truck and he calls over to the superintendent, hey, so-and-so, and he pulls out a long gun, like a rifle, and goes to shoot him. And then they struggle. They have a little bit of a struggle, and then the truck explodes. And it instantly kills Andrew, and it kills the superintendent. It kills 2 other adults, and it kills an 8-year-old child who had just left the building that had blown up. Now, the shrapnel from the truck caused so much damage. It hit cars that were parked a half a block away. It caught roofs on fire, and it injured several fucking people in that area and killed 1 more person that was not even near the explosion. But again, he had rigged his car up as basically like a ginormous pipe bomb. Right. Because he had metal shrapnel flying everywhere when his car exploded. Now, they're searching at this point for anything they can find. And I mean, hundreds, like the whole goddamn town comes out to search the school for bodies and survivors. Well, while they're searching, they actually find 500 pounds or 230 kilograms of dynamite that had not detonated. It had failed to detonate in the south wing of the school. So what he had actually set it up for was that both were supposed to trigger and blow up the whole entire school. 500 pounds of dynamite. We're not talking like a dynamite stick, okay? Now, the thought was that the initial explosion from the north end of the school actually knocked something loose on his detonation trigger thingy on the second set. So therefore, it did not light the dynamite. And the way that he had set this up is he took this. Remember how I said that he had containers of gasoline that had been rigged with a tube? Mm-hmm. So basically what he had done is he had set it up to where there's like this container of gasoline. There was a tube that came out and there was something about how he had made it work is that it would like trigger the gasoline, which would explode the gasoline, which would light the dynamite on fire and then explode, which it obviously worked for the first one. So something happened in the second one. Now, police also then at that point start to go, okay, hold on. So Andrew Kehoe just showed up with a truck at the school that had already exploded, shot at the fucking superintendent, fought with him, blew up his car, shrapnel everywhere, killing all these people. Let's go search his house. Because also his house exploded this morning too, so that's weird. So they go to the house and they start searching and they actually find, at first they think that Nellie is still in the hospital because they can't find her. So they're like thinking, okay, well, maybe she was in the hospital. Well, as they're searching, they end up finding her charred remains in the wheelbarrow at the farm by the chicken coop. Now, it's around 5 or 6 p.m. that day that they finally removed the last victim from the school as well. So you remember this happened at 8:45 in the morning.
It's like an all fucking day event.
Yeah.
Of just hell.
Yes. All of Andrew's farm was destroyed. Completely destroyed. Trigger alert on animal abuse. I'm just telling you right now. His 2 horses had died in the barn because he left them in there when he exploded his whole farm. This sick motherfucker bound the legs of the horses with wire so they could not run. I told you it got worse. It makes me cry. Like I literally teared up.
Dude, I'm a heartless person because I almost feel like that's worse than the school.
I'm a terrible person. No. It's because animals are innocent. They don't, animals, especially like horses, dogs, cats, like they just are innocent. Really, they don't do very many things wrong. And horses in particular, like cats can scratch you and be kind of assholes, and dogs can bite you and be jerks, but horses really typically aren't. And horses deal with like a lot of abuse a lot of the times because they're so big. So to know that
because horses are so fucking strong that even if they
would have been able to run. If they might have survived had they been able to run. And like I said,
been able to detect all that shit.
They would have been able to do something probably. So the fact that he bound their legs with wire so they couldn't run is so fucking cruel. It just tells you like exactly the kind of person he was. So they also find a sign on Andrew's home, which weirdly enough, the sign survived. This is what's so weird. I don't know why. He was an electrician, so he had knowledge of this kind of shit. But whatever he did, wherever he put the sign, it was not affected by the fire. And the sign said, and it was Andrew's sign, it said, "Criminals are made, not born." So he's literally like, you guys made me do this.
Yeah.
Now, Andrew's body is obviously found at the explosion site by the school, and it is identified by one of his sisters, and he is considered a pauper, and he is buried in an unmarked grave. Fair enough, because to be honest, if that was my brother, I wouldn't fucking claim his ass either. Now, this massacre killed a total of 43 people. 38 were students, 4 staff members, and 1 bystander. Now, at the time, this was not the first bombing massacre in the United States, but it was the most deadly and had affected the most children. And this, to this day, is still the largest school massacre ever, which is so crazy because for me, when I started researching this, I've never heard of this. I've never heard of the Bath School Massacre ever. And we have...
See, but I wonder if you lived in Michigan.
Oh, I'm sure you do in Michigan. But my thing that like blows my mind is we constantly hear about school shootings, mass shootings.
Well, Columbine is always talked about in
correct.
School.
And I feel like we need to make sure that people understand that it's not just now. I mean, in the 20s. Okay, like
this shit's been going on. Decades.
It's just different. Like instead of using a gun, he used massive amounts of bombs and stuff. So it's like, but to know that the Bath Massacre is to this date the largest school massacre still. Because I even looked it up because I was like, am I wrong on this? There's one that came close, and it was one of the college shootings. I think in the college shooting, they killed like 30, it was like 32 people died. But the fact that 38 students, you want to talk about just school part? If you're going to talk just school, it was 42 people that were in the school that were killed and 38 were students. So I do think it's important when we talk about mass killings, especially in a massacre of a school, why we don't learn about this kind of stuff is crazy to me. It was so like the fact that I did not know this was insane to me because I'm like, you're correct. Columbine's always what I go to. And that's also because I was in high school when it happened. Like I was in high school when Columbine happened. So that really affected me as a high school student. And that's what I think of.
I wasn't even alive. And I like throughout
they use Columbine to teach.
As the example.
Well, and they use Columbine to teach lockdown drills. Like
lockdown drills, gun safety.
Yeah, they do.
The whole 9 yards.
To be fair, great. Because that is, I mean, something like that should have happened. But it's like, the thing that sucks, and this is like so cynical of me to say this, but the way it is if you have people who are not necessarily right in their head, or they're going through some sort of issues or a psychosis and they want to kill somebody in a mass amount, they're going to find a way to do it. If you don't have a gun, they're going to make a bomb. If they don't have a bomb, they're going to, light a school on fire. Like there's so many different ways that they can do it. And this is the proof of it. Like he didn't use guns, but he blew up a whole entire school. So within a year of this whole incident, they had actually rebuilt the school, and school resumed for the 1928 school year. So they came together as a community. And I think about like the parents. So I saw, I saw some, cause I was able to look at like newspaper articles from back in 1926, and they had actually had some witnesses that they had talked to. And one of the witnesses had said, it was amazing. Yes, it was a terrible thing, but it was amazing because all these parents showed up because their children all go to the school. And instead of running up and going, "Where's my child?" they immediately jumped in and started just pulling bodies and helping do all the things, whether it was their child that they pulled out or not. They didn't even like focus on that. They were just there to try to help, which is so crazy because you think about it. If it's your child, you want your child. If your child dies, you're sitting there mourning. But they didn't let that stop them. They all came together. They got there, They figured it out, and then they came, they had tons and tons of funerals, obviously, that had to happen. And the thing that was annoying, but also okay, I guess, I get it, was after this massacre, they had like so many people drive through this town because they were interested in what happened. During the time that these funerals were, people were having funerals in their homes because there was just so many funerals that needed to be had. And they would have like recessions of cars. They said that there was one day where they had 50,000 cars drive through their town. That's wrong. In my opinion, that is wrong. This town is a very small town. They're all mourning. Every single person that lost somebody that day, even if it wasn't their own child, they lost somebody they knew. And so, and then it became a spectacle. And then I did find out, though, that pretty sure, and this is why I wonder if we don't hear about it as much, pretty shortly after this happened, I don't remember exactly what it was. I should have written it down, but something happened. And it was World War I, because I think World War II is in the 30s and the 40s, but something had happened with some sort of thing. The United States had dropped some. It was not the atomic bomb, obviously, because the atomic bombs was in the 30s, I think, or 40. I think it was 45 or whatever. So it was something, we had dropped some sort of bomb somewhere, and it all of a sudden, all the news shifted from, oh, this school massacre to, oh, look at this war that's going on. And the townspeople actually said it was a blessing in disguise because people just forgot about us and we could actually stay and mourn. Right. We could actually rebuild and create a community, right? So that school that they rebuilt stayed in place until 1975. Could you imagine that? Like from 1928 to 1970, not that the school being that old, but could you imagine being somebody in the 70s going to the school knowing that this was a school that had been rebuilt because of a bombing? Now, they did end up tearing the school down, and they actually created a memorial park. They put a memorial park there. And in the center of the park is the school's cupola, which is like a small dome-like structure that had been on the original school. They basically took that and put it in the center of a park as like the memorial, and it's in the exact same place where the school had been. So it's like this is the marking of where the school is. And again, I'm going to repeat this one more time. The Bath School Massacre is the largest school massacre still to this date in the United States. So the fact that we live in a world that we always talk about, you're scared to put your kids in school and all this stuff, it's not anything new. This is something that definitely has happened before. And this man, because he was pissed off about his taxes and he was pissed that he got voted out because he was a dick, took it out on children. And the theory behind it, because obviously we will never know why, because the only message people got from him was criminals are made, not born, alluding to the fact that he was not a criminal until
what was the
pissed.
problem? The problem was the school, because the school was making you pay more for more taxes. So what's the easiest thing to eliminate?
Get rid of the school.
Fucking school, because based on what you were saying with how much did not detonate, that would have obliterated the whole. It would have leveled
it. He would have killed every kid in that school too.
And then guess what? You wouldn't have had to pay the taxes.
And do you want to know?
But guess
something?
what? You would have, because you would have fucking rebuilt it.
Do you want to know
home
something
one
that was
make sense to me though?
Well, I think he was just blowing. Well, his home was going to be taken away from him.
Oh, yeah. I forgot
so
about
he
that.
probably blew that up because he's like, good luck taking my home, right? However, this is the other part that was like, ugh. That day, May 18th, was the last day of school before summer.
Oh, that's fun. That's why he did it.
And there was actually a girl who is still alive to this day, who they had interviewed that was in school, but she stayed home that day because she didn't feel good.
Well, she got lucky.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that it's just like, it's always tragic. But this guy in particular, their thought process for him is that he was upset about the taxes. Because he actually, when there was somebody who came to his door to tell him that his house was being foreclosed. They basically came and said, hey, we're going to be taking your house. You have to pay this in a certain amount of days or we're taking your home. And his response to them was, if it wasn't for that damn $300 tax that I had to pay for the school, I probably could have afforded, or I probably could afford to pay for my house. So he did say that at one point. And then on top of it, he's booted out of his town council, whatever that he was, and he's pissed. And so he wants to take it out on what causes him the most, which is, and he killed his wife. Let's be fair. He killed his wife. Why? Probably because she cost him a lot of money.
money.
Exactly. So this whole thing to me is literally about greed. He was he was a frugal person. He was pissed off about how much money he was spending. So he ruined everybody else's life because he's a fucking baby. So anyways, that is the story of Andrew Kehoe and the Bath School Massacre. You're welcome. Not a fun story, but I thought it was interesting. Not going to lie. I don't find it fun or funny, but it was a interesting, and I like historically the fact that I did not know it was something very new to me. So that was really good. So if you like these kind of things, if you like what we be talking about on this podcast, make sure you're following us. Follow all of our socials. Follow whatever platform you're listening on so that you get reminded every Tuesday that we posted a new episode. Other than that, I think I'm just going to tell you that I need to get off of this damn microphone so I can go get coffee because I have a really bad headache. Thanks for listening to us talk about Andrew Kehoe and the Bath Town Massacre. And until next time, catch you on the flip side, bitches.
Bye, bitches.